What's up, Womack Nostalgia? Dave here with a review of The Electric State, the new action-adventure science fiction film starring Millie Bobby Brown and Chris Pratt, out now on Netflix. This is the latest film from the Russo Brothers since they left Marvel to go out on their own following Avengers Endgame, and now the last project really of theirs before they return to Avengers, returning to Marvel once again. The Electric States is an loose adaptation of this illustrated novel from a few years back, and has got a lot of attention for numerous reasons. One, this movie has a staggering price tag of 320 million budget reportedly. Universal actually kind of passed on these rights. Netflix got involved instead. And yeah, I mean, this is a big chunk of Netflix's 18 billion annual content spend, obviously. And of course, this film is starring Millie Bobby Brown, one of the biggest faces on Netflix, of course, not just with Stranger Things, but also with Damsel last year and the two Enola Holmes movies. Frankly, Millie Bobby Brown is more on Netflix than she's not. Frankly, apart from the two Godzilla movies, there's actually no film she's done outside of the Netflix system. And of course, Chris Pratt, certified, established, box office leading man, superstar type at this point, going to Netflix for, I believe, the first time. Not his first streaming movie. Of course, The Tomorrow War came out on Prime during the pandemic. Nonetheless, it's a high profile film from really all angles, everything involved. And unsurprisingly, Netflix has pushed the movie extensively. It's their number one on their chart in the top 10, although that was kind of a given, obviously, given all the promo for the film. Unfortunately, The Electric State continues the bad run of form from the Russo brothers since they left Marvel. As a story, it's incredibly half-baked. The world building is so thin and ineffective. The concept of a war between humans and robots and robot rights and a robot revolution and who's good, who's bad, evil tech overlord. There's nothing original at all in this movie. Being derivative isn't a sin in and of itself, but this movie also isn't good at anything it's actually ripping off. Millie Bobby Brown and Chris Pratt are really sleepwalking through the movie as well, acting against all these CGI robots. Honestly, it's just a tough time, and it's not even like fun to be with the big moments because it's so visually flat and uninteresting. At least the last time the Russos did something for Netflix, it was visually interesting and kind of badass at times in The Gray Man. There's just not much at all to recommend about The Electric State. And, the story, it's set in the 90s, right? We flash back to 1990, pre the war versus the robots with the humans. And then the present day story is like in 94, I want to say. But like, apart from some like needle drops, it doesn't really commit to being a 90s story all that much. I mean, I guess Chris Pratt has like a dated haircut. I guess that's about all you could say. You know, to me, like, I think the world building like really threw me off early on because like I just didn't quite grasp why this conflict was so tenuous. You have these robots which are largely established as in the exposition at the beginning of the movie as like menial task agents, right? What we expect of like modern automation, right? Like your bus drivers, your cooks, your garbage cleaners, right? Those type of robots. um the robots who eventually rise up and want their own autonomy, like many robot stories how they go, these robots aren't the Terminators from the James Cameron movies, are they? No, they're not like super strapped with means to fight back against humanity. So why was humanity losing the war exactly during this flashback period? It just didn't make any sense to me at all. The fact that like the world's military in the 90s, coming out of the Cold War, couldn't handle a bunch of robots who weren't war machines. They just didn't do any of the work there to convince me of that. And, as a result, that's your setup for the savior, the ender of the war, who is Stanley Tucci's, evil Steve Jobs tech figure who invents this Apple Vision Pro S device, allow humans to be super sedentary and go travel virtually with this device, the Neurocaster. It's like, okay, fine. But like again, I just was really struggling with it from the start. I mean, there's a ton of like info dump and exposition stuff in the beginning, but like once we kind of like get off to it, it's just like the story to me feels so thin as well. Like Millie's just kind of going off with the robot she encounters, and they meet up with Chris Pratt. Next thing we know, we're with the robots in the exclusion zone, which is very much like a you know internment camp style setting. There's just no like wow moments with the movie. I think tonally, like There's some fun humor with some of the robot characters and the lines they have. I mean, it's a loaded voice cast for sure. Anthony Mackie, Woody Harrelson, Brian Cox, Coleman Domingo. The list goes on. It's long and impressive. But the movie just really felt so vague to me. I mean, it's literally the second movie in a row that Giancarlo Esposito is the bad guy with very little to do and very little substance to his characters. Of course, following Captain America: Brave New World. Tucci's CEO is so overtly one note. There's no subtext to his character at all. I like Millie Bobby Brown in general. I do think she's a charming person, but man, she really struggles with this movie. The affectations, her face is so flat in so many of the scenes, and I don't necessarily blame her. I mean, she's acting against these robots, you know. Pratt also doesn't make much of an impression at all. He has a few lines that maybe stand out, but I mean, he's just kind of chilling doing Diet Star Lord. You know, nothing too fancy with it. Yeah, man. I mean, also, again, the movie doesn't look good. Why did this cost so much money? I don't get it. Like you don't see the budget. This isn't doesn't look like Avatar. You know? Yeah, it's a stinker. You know, I'm sure Netflix will say only good things about it because they're gonna pump this on all their users, and then in 2 quarters' time, when we get the data dump for the first half of 2025, in all likelihood, it'll be their most watched movie of the year, and by their own metrics, I guess that will make the movie a success. But it is a creative failure across all fronts. And man, the Russos, huh? I think that's the biggest takeaway of all, right? Post Avengers Endgame, post leaving Marvel at the peak of their powers, the peak of their success, they give us the dud with Tom Holland Cherry on Apple. They give us the complete failure to launch Amazon Prime series Citadel, and then the Gray Man at Netflix, and the Electric State at Netflix. And no one has any passion for any of those things. And I'll just go out and assume that no one's really going to care about the Electric State too much. And now they're going back to Marvel for Avengers Doomsday and Avengers Secret Wars. And frankly, it's a good idea because they've largely struck out and spent a fuck ton of money along the way. So maybe it's about time to go back to not their roots. Of course, the roots are on TV, but like go back to where they go and was good, and that was with Marvel. And hopefully they can help Marvel capture some old glory as well. We'll see, but it's been a rough stretch without the Marvel machine, the IP that they know. So yeah, Electric State. I mean, there's really not much to get into with it. It's a derivative mess that doesn't really succeed at anything it's inspired by. This it's a total skip, honestly. Let me know though, what'd you think of Electric State? If you liked it more than me, please tell me why. I'd be shocked to learn, but please tell me. And for more movie reviews, subscribe, and I'll see you next time.